Thank you. Good morning. We'll do it again, okay? I was looking at something. I came in and we're talking this morning about letting go and letting God, or turning it over to the infinite. We use the term let go and let God very loosely. I'd really like to explore some of that this morning. And I was looking at our conversation here, our vision, our mission, and our core values. It's kind of interesting. I'd like to read them. If you'd like to, it's on the front of your bulletin. So pick your bulletin out. And vision, centered in God, which means one. We are one with God. Everybody there? Basic unity principle. Okay? So centered in God, we celebrate a world of love. Hello? Everything out there is love. Now, you might not see it as love, but everything is of spirit. And it's how we interact with it that produces the love, if you can understand that. So even stuff that's going on, those of you in politics, it's all love. Okay? Then it goes on and says, harmony. That means things are working in harmony. Not disharmony, harmony. And abundance. That means everybody has enough. And there's an equality of everything. Now, what's interesting about that is, what is the difference between those that have and those that don't in our world? Okay, very, very interesting. Let's go on. Mission statement. We are a vibrant spiritual community. So that anytime you say spiritual, you're talking involved in a higher order of things. Not religious, spiritual. Okay? And then it goes on and says, empowering personal transformation. So that means each one of us is empowered. Does that mean we go through personal transformation? It means we're empowered to. If we do, it's up to us. Because we must be doing the work. Everybody there? Mm-hmm. Then it goes on and says, and modeling the Christ consciousness. So what does modeling mean? Showing how it's done, providing an example or an idea of that state of being. So we're modeling the Christ consciousness, which means we're doing the Christ consciousness. We're creating it, we're operating in it, we're living in it. And that's a conscious choice. Because we can choose to be in Christ consciousness or in ego consciousness. And that's the choice we make at every moment of every day, okay? And then core values, integrity. That means we do what we say we do. Or we walk the talk. Anybody familiar with that idea? Mm-hmm. And then joy. That means we're happy, we're blissful, we're enjoying life, we're in harmony, things are working. Have we stepped on anybody's toes yet? There we go. Living love. That means not only accepting love, but giving love. In other words, being a love environment. And that's how we speak, how we appreciate each other, how we pat each other on the back, if you will. And that's how we take care of each other. That's how we think of each other. Because you can't be creating peace through conflict. See, to me, the whole idea makes no sense. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You cannot create peace through conflict. So any type of conflict doesn't bring peace. All it brings is awareness, and it works in the physical world, but over in the spiritual world, if we're looking for spiritual peace, we must be working on peace. And then it says, spirit-led and thriving. The word thriving I like. Anybody agree? That means things are working. My life is working. I'm in the flow. Funny things happen, like people just come along and do things for me. Okay? Which is an amazing thing. You even find parking spots once in a while. Which is one of the beginning stages in the metaphysical world, if you can use that terminology. But it was kind of interesting to me because really the whole idea and the article that I did in the newsletter on Thursday was pretty much entitled, and the title of it was Surrender to the Infinite. See, there's an infinite presence. It's everywhere present under all conditions in all situations. So there is a presence that is infinity. And one of the problems in our physical world, it's difficult to understand infinity. a lot of people, you know, if I'm asked, are you ready for infinity? I said, well, I thought we were living in it. Because infinity, by definition, has no beginning, has no end. And so I am a finite being in an infinite world, if I can use that terminology, so I'm living in infinity. And we all are right now. And is it fun or not? See, we're here to learn some lessons. And that's what I want to talk about today, is the lessons we have to learn. One of the things that we, as a corporeal being in an incorporeal world, is that we want to figure things out. We always have to have a reason. We have to justify it. We have to have a reason to do things. Things have to fit together. If you've got a slightly engineering background like I do, 1 + 1 has to equal 2. Anybody familiar with math? Okay. And sometimes in this world, 1 + 1 might equal 3. And it makes no sense. So we always have to make sense of things. And when we're making sense of things, we are living and making sense in the physical world, not the spiritual world. Because the spiritual world is beyond the physical world. Everybody there? So it's a very, very interesting idea. And in our physical being, we are influenced by everybody around us. I think I've shared a quote with you from a gentleman we worked with years ago. He used to tell people, have to compete with your neighbors and friends who control your mind. See, we grow up with ideas. I can remember, you know, and I've talked about my family, but the idea behind it is a lot of our ideas come from our family and our background and our culture and our racial and our this and that. And so we're a combination of all these things come together, and we are influenced in our outlook on life by those around us. Okay, so no matter what, we are a product of our environment, if I can use that terminology. And in that environment, here's who we are and here's what we believe. And we keep trying to make ourselves fit into this story that we've made up, if you will. Okay? So, it goes on. And in the process, we honor intelligence, we honor learning, we honor somebody who spends a lot of time learning things. Academic degrees are, you know, if you've got those letters behind your name, that's a big deal. Yes? Okay. And immediately people start talking. It's funny, a lot of times people come to church and they'll say, well, I've been in uni for 35 years and I did this, and then they start telling me all the workshops they've been through. And what does that mean? You understand, I'm an accumulation of all these things, and if I try to figure them out, I'm still living in the physical world. So it's kind of interesting, it really is. Psalm 46. Now, here's the idea. When I don't know where this phrase is coming from. I can't use the phrase that just came into my mind, but anyway, you know, when stuff hits the fan, what do we do? Okay? And so how do we handle despair? How do we handle troubles? How do we handle issues? How do we make decisions? How do we work with things? And so usually what happens is we have learned how to do things. If you will, we go to school, we learn math, we learn English, we go on to higher education, we might learn a specific skill. But everything we bring to that skill is what we learned in preparation for the skill. So we really, really value learning. And we say learning is important to us. And I don't know about you, but we had a library, number of books. And I was kind of proud of you. I carried that library around with us for years, thinking that my sum total of my brain was that library. Okay? But you know what? No. Course of Love came along, and I've been working with that. This week we're in the Course of Love. Last week we're in the Course of Miracles. But Course of Love has said, the time for learning has ended. Because we don't need to learn anything, because if we're really a child of God, the only thing we have to do is know that we're a child of God. Okay? And you can study all the metaphysics and get involved in all the issues. But until we make that step and say, I'm a child of God, created in the image of God, and I express God, that's the big step. And from there, what do I need to know? I just need to know I'm a child of God. So the Course of Love gets real interested in this whole thing. And this is chapter 11. It says the end of learning and the sustainability of the Christ consciousness. So the end of learning has occurred, and now we have to learn to stay in the Christ consciousness in order to live a spiritual life. So it's first thing it says is the future is yet to be created. Anybody agree with that? Yeah, okay. The future, see, and the future is being created now, and who's creating the future?
Yeah.
Each of us is individually creating our own future. And how are we creating it? See, if we're creating it from what we've learned in the past, what are we doing? Repeating the past over and over and over again. And each one of us has that divine plan or that spark, the Christ within us. So if I end learning and I go into knowing, then I start creating the future from the Christ consciousness. Does that make sense? That's why the Course of Love is saying that the time for learning has ended, because I don't need to keep recreating the past. We have been looking at, behold, things are new. So if they're new, they're created from a new state of being, a new consciousness. Okay? I don't know about you, but I keep running into things that I am familiar with. In other words, you move from one place to another, and if you have a neighbor next door that's bothersome, for some reason the neighbor moves with you and is in next door when you get there. And we keep recreating that same jerk over and over again. Okay? And it's amazing to me. It's like I keep creating, and I'm not getting involved in all my negatives, but the idea is we take the past with us. So the only way we can create the new is the future is yet to be created. Now, I need a future without glasses, but I'll get my glasses on. See, if I complain about it too much, I keep creating it over and over again. Okay? So, putting my glasses on, it says, this is chapter 11 still, the future depends on you who are willing to leave learning behind. In other words, what are we, I am willing to leave certain things behind, okay? And did you ever notice we want to hang on to things? We're getting ready to move, so we're going through the house, and we've moved quite a few times, and for some reason I keep moving some of that junk with me. Because why? Because it's comfortable.
It's your junk.
It's my junk. That's who I am. Okay, I was talking with somebody who was getting ready to retire yesterday, and I remember going through that retirement stage, and it was interesting because I didn't realize that I lived out of what I did. 3 questions anybody asks when you meet somebody new. What's your name? Where do you live? What do you do? And so we are totally dependent on where we live and what do we do. It's our self-image. My goodness gracious. So when that idea is gone, who am I? So there's a readjustment. So maybe there's a readjustment from the physical self, the ego, into the Christ self. And a new learning that has to take place to be the Christ in the physical world. So one of the things that I was looking at today is the turmoil in the world. Folks, people are suffering. There's a lot, we've been hearing a lot of people doing this. Some of us in the room have been through some issues in this last week. Some of us have a few issues next week. So we keep going through these things. And so, how can I work with that? How can I deal with that? And that's what I've been looking at. And what I keep realizing is that I keep talking about and keep living in what I used to do or how I used to act. And so this goes on and says, those who are willing to accept your new role as creators of the new, creators of the future. See, here's the idea, folks. As in the Christ consciousness, we are creating a Christ consciousness world. In the world of the ego, we're creating the same old stuff in the ego. And what is being created out there isn't where I want to live. Anybody agree with that? Because we're dealing with war, we're dealing with disease, we're dealing with lack, we're dealing with inequality, we're dealing with racial tensions, we're dealing with gender tensions. Am I missing any? There must be more. We're really dealing with religious tensions. So where does that come from? What is the root of that? The root of that is hanging on to old ideas, conditioned ideas that are part of who we are. So where do I want to go? I would like to live in a world that's fair. Anybody agree? And I would like to live in a world where everybody has enough. I would like to live in a world where disease is no longer part of my conversation. I'd like to live in a world that's happiness, joy. When I pick up a newspaper, I get some good news. Okay? We don't need contention. And yet people feel the best way to resolve an issue that somebody does to me is to fight back. And fighting back creates what? More fighting back. It just accelerates and emphasizes. But yet that's what we've been trained to do. So if I'm going to create a new world, I can't create the new world with the same old physical place. I have to go into the new creative world, which is the spirit world, which is the Christ world. Okay? Very interesting conversation. So going on further, I have some more quotes. It says, in unity, there's no need for teachers or learners. You see, now that learning has ended, we don't need teachers. Because the Christ within you is the teacher. Anybody agree we know? I love it when somebody says, well, I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would you say? Okay? Because we know. Deep down. Now, sometimes we don't want to let others know that we know. Or sometimes we want to lie to ourselves, if you will. But the truth is, the Christ self of who you are, when you start slowing down and getting quiet, it guides you. It's the automatic guidance system that's there. The problem with it is you can't live in the physical world completely and access the spiritual world. Everybody there? See, a lot of people say, well, I want that, but am I willing to do the work to get there? It's kind of like everybody wants to be a great musician, yes? I'd love to be able to be a good piano player. And I'm not willing to go through the hours of practice to get there. Do you get it? And so the idea is, if we're going to be in the spiritual world, then we have to practice the spiritual world. Which means, now we're involved in centering prayer here. Pat's not here, but I think we're going to do another workshop on the 22nd of May. And the idea behind that is 20 minutes of silence in the morning, 20 minutes of silence in the afternoon, or some form of that. Just silence, period, nothing else. Okay, not guided meditation, silence. Because the kingdom of heaven is where? Within. And the psalm says, be still and know that I am God. So, see, these ideas are left everywhere. So then it goes on and says, there is need only for the sustainability of the Christ consciousness in which we exist, together as creators in unity and relationship. The word relationship keeps coming up. In our political discourse, conversations out there, people are starting to say, can't we just get together and talk? Okay, and unfortunately it's a difficult barrier, okay? Because most people's minds are not present when they're talking to somebody else. Agreed? Mm-hmm. I mean, when somebody's really present with you, you know it. You can feel it, okay? And in a conversation is where truth goes. So we are not in conversation with each other on an honest level, which is the Christ level, which if we bring in the Christ, we will operate at that level, is my belief. But to get there, it takes time. Prayer work, it takes time connecting with your heart. It takes time reconditioning the mind to understand that the world out there is not out to get me. And the world out there keeps repeating to me what I need to learn, which is one of the more difficult things to get. I was reading Joe Vitale this week. It's right here. Thank you. See that? I get off into the ether somewhere. And truth was, I had some time, so I sat down with Joe. And his latest book, which, thank you, Sue, shared it with me. And it says, this was an interesting quote for me. He says, the type of thinking we're talking about requires advanced thinking and a mature spirit. It means somebody that's ready to make a difference in life. Somebody that's had enough. I call it being fed up with the issues the way they are. and knowing that it's not working for me. And then it goes on and says the rule of thumb, I don't like that, by the way, the general rule is whatever gets you upset, whenever you're upset, you've gone unconscious. Okay? Then it says, that means a hidden belief was pushed and you reacted emotionally. See, I wouldn't be upset if I didn't have an inner belief that was pushed by you doing this to me. Did you hear what she said? He did this. And when that comes up, there's an issue there that we have to deal with. However, we take it personally because they did it to me. Okay? By the way, did anybody figure it out? There's nobody out there? We're all in here. That's terrible. Jeez. You mean I'm responsible? Yeah. Okay. Then it goes on and says, let's see, this is how fights, wars, divorces, and more begin. And I'll add war and politics and all the stuff that's going on in our world. Okay? So it goes on and says, if someone says something that irritates us, we stop and look at what is in it that got triggered. It's not about the other person, it's about us. So if I'm in the Christ consciousness, I'm looking for those things all the time. Knowing that there's nothing out there, everything is within here, and anything that happens out there, I created as a lesson for me in here. Which is one of the big issues. It's really annoying. You mean I'm responsible? Yes, I need to tell myself that. Okay? Which is true. It's really true. Here I go again. A very interesting thing happened this morning. My phone is floating around somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. So,
You tried calling it?
well, Madeline did that for me. It said it was up at the McDonald's. Okay? So, somebody got my phone. Is that true? Absolutely not.
No, you gave it to somebody.
Or I lost it. So responsibility still goes back where? To me. Now see, here's the idea. Here's the thing. Whatever I think about, I create. This basic law of attraction, metaphysics idea. Yes? So what I think about, I create. So if I keep dwelling on, I lost my phone, what do I create more of?
Lost.
So I can think, there's three ways I can think. Number one, I lost my phone, I'm upset. Number two, I can get positive and say, my phone's going to show up. It's going to be around. I know. That's the positive thinking. Spiritual thinking is God. And all there is God. There isn't anything else. And when I connect with God, everything goes into harmony. Which one of those three would you prefer? See, you see it? And what we do is we think there's always two sides to a conversation. There's three sides. So what I'd like to share with you is you can go on the negative, you can go on the positive. But for me, the thing that produces change, produces peace, produces health, produces even wealth, is the thought of God. Paramahansa Yogananda said, read a little, meditate quite often, and think of God all the time. And see, if our thinking is on God, what are we creating in our life? God. And the presence of God. So believe it or not, this funny incident, I got it. Because my phone is in God's hands, not my hands, not somebody else's. And does it matter what unfolds? No. Because whatever period of time I have, God is present in my phone. So that when politics come up, I was watching TV, I do watch it occasionally, I get hooked on it. And the whole Syria thing came up, I realized there's nothing I can do about that. I can feel upset about it, I can feel good about it, but in the middle is God. And all there is God, and God's love is unfolding no matter how it looks, through me and through you. And so it's up to us to balance the rest of the world with thinking of God. Interesting idea, isn't it? And I got that. Again, I'm trying to go here or there. Well, the middle is God. And so thinking about God is what do I call it? It's not the last resort, it's the first resort. And allowing life to unfold in its perfect way. So I appreciate that. We spent some time yesterday on the property down there. Sue, Kat, and I. Tommy said it looks clean this morning. You should have seen. And you know who got the biggest trash bag? Sue did. Sue. She wants everybody to know that. She
Yes, I did.
But that property's down there waiting. Okay? Now, the law of attraction says whatever I think about, I create. Period. It doesn't say if the bankers like me. It doesn't say if I've got a donor. It doesn't say anything. It says we are creators. And that building right there, see it? That building has, in design and in thought, has been created. And so how does it show up on the property? Belief. Just belief. I've had a number of people, you know, our goal or our intention is to build that building down there debt-free. So we walk in without debt. And I've had people say, well, don't you want to borrow the money? Because if you borrow the money, people will come.
No.
Hello? You guys have been through that before. I mean, what'd you do? Spend $2 billion on a beautiful building, and it went down the tubes about 4 or 5 years later. So we're dealing with, are we really creators or not? And it's kind of like, okay, it's time to really walk the talk and know that that building is up. Right. It's also time to walk the talk and know that we're a spiritual community making a difference, loving each other, supporting each other, through thick and thin, no matter what, because we're all in this together. Have you ever figured we all breathe the same air, so we need to take care of each other. And in that process, the energy that we create changes the world around us. But it's up to us to change first. So I love you dearly, all of you. You're part of a community that is modeling the Christ consciousness and changing the world. And the world is changing around us as long as we change within. So I don't know about you, but I'm very thankful for you. I love you.